They were born of conquest, forged through discipline, and feared across 3 continents. The Janissaries, elite infantry of the Ottoman Empire, weren't just warriors. They were a revolutionary military institution. From humble origins as enslaved Christian boys, they became the most feared force in the Islamic world. Their rise marks a turning point in military history, where professionalism began to eclipse feudal levies and strategy triumphed over raw power. This is the story of the Janissaries and how they changed the art of war. The Janissaries began with an idea both brutal and brilliant. In the 14th century, the Ottomans instituted the Devshirme system, where Christian boys from the Balkans were taken from their families, converted to Islam, and trained as soldiers or administrators. These boys were cut off from their past, forbidden to marry, and forbidden to own property. In return, they received elite training, wages, and a path to power unavailable to most Ottoman citizens. The idea was simple: create an army with no ties to feudal lords or tribal loyalties, only loyalty to the Sultan. By the late 14th century, the Janissaries had become the Ottoman Sultan's personal infantry guard. Unlike feudal knights or tribal warriors, they were salaried, uniformed, and trained year-round. They lived in barracks, followed strict codes of conduct, and were subject to constant drills. This created a level of cohesion and discipline unseen in most medieval armies. They were the first standing army in Europe since the Roman legions and innovation that would later inspire similar forces in Western Europe. What made the Janissaries truly revolutionary was their early and enthusiastic adoption of firearms. As early as the 15th century, they were among the first infantry units in the world to use matchlock muskets and portable cannons in combat. They learned to fire in volleys, reload under pressure, and operate in tight formations. At a time when many European armies still relied on archers and knights, the Janissaries were already fighting with gunpowder centuries ahead of their time. They weren't just using technology, they were changing tactics to suit it. The Janissaries were not used as light skirmishers or supporting infantry. They were the core of the Ottoman battlefield. Unlike cavalry charges that relied on brute force and momentum, Janissary tactics focused on positioning, fire discipline, and unit cohesion. In battle, they advanced in staggered lines, with gunners in front and support troops behind. Their hallmark was the volley successive lines firing in rotation to keep up a constant barrage. They were also trained in hand-to-hand combat, using curved swords, axes, and shields when needed. In sieges, they served as shock troops. In open field, they were immovable. Life in the Janissary corps was as regimented as the battlefield. Barracks were militarized communities with their own internal rules, rituals, and hierarchies. Janissaries cooked communally, slept in shared quarters, and practiced drills daily, even in peacetime. Music was central to their identity. Meter bands with pounding drums and shrill flutes accompanied them into battle, both to intimidate the enemy and regulate marching pace. Their strict lifestyle was designed to reinforce discipline, loyalty, and cohesion. Over time, this culture created an elite brotherhood unmatched in the early modern world. The Janissaries proved their worth in battle after battle. At the Battle of Nicopolis in 1396, they played a key role in defeating a coalition of European knights. At Varna in 1444, they crushed a Christian army led by the King of Poland and Hungary. But their crowning moment came in 1453 during the siege of Constantinople. As Ottoman cannons battered the walls, the Janissaries led the final charge, storming the breaches and breaking the city's defenses. Their discipline and fearlessness in urban combat helped them too earn the title Conqueror. Over time, the very strength of the Janissaries became a political threat. As their prestige grew, so did their demands. By the 16th century, they had become a powerful political class capable of making or breaking sultans. They resisted reforms, demanded bribes, and became involved in court intrigues. Many began to marry, engage in trade, and pass their positions to their sons, undermining the original Devshirme model. By the 17th century, they were less an elite corps and more an entrenched military bureaucracy. Their effectiveness on the battlefield declined as corruption and complacency set in. By the 19th century, the Janissaries were a shadow of their former selves, unruly, politically entrenched, and violently resistant to modernization. In 1826, Sultan Mahmud II, determined to reform the army along European lines, moved to disband the corps. When the Janissaries revolted, he unleashed the artillery on their barracks in what became known as the Auspicious Incident. Thousands were killed, and the corps was abolished. It was the bloody end of a military institution that had once dominated the Islamic world. The Janissaries left behind more than battlefield victories. They were the prototype of the modern professional soldier, trained, paid, uniformed, and organized by the state. Their legacy lived on in Ottoman military culture, and their innovations inspired other empires, from the Russian Streltsy to the French musketeers. Though their end was ignoble, their rise marked a turning point in military history, the moment when states began to replace feudal levies with disciplined, centrally controlled armies. The Janissaries were not just soldiers. They were instruments of imperial will. The rise of the Janissaries is the story of how military innovation, state building, and discipline came together to form one of the most effective fighting forces of the pre-modern world. They began as enslaved boys, but through structure, loyalty, and the brutal realities of war, they shaped the destiny of the Ottoman Empire for centuries. In the Janissaries, we see the evolution of warfare itself, from the age of knights to the age of gunpowder and standing armies. Their story is not just one of rise and fall, it's a blueprint for the future of war.